Talk Radio.
It's Monday, November 25th, 2024. The Biden coup has openly announced a plan to consider giving nuclear weapons to Ukraine to attack Russia.
InfoWars. Tomorrow's news today.
A year ago, I warned you that NATO was seriously considering giving nuclear weapons to Ukraine. Then in October, I raised the alarm again, and I got fact-checked by the corporate media. Well, now the Biden administration, just hours ago, floated the idea in the New York Times with senior administration officials saying that they want to stop Trump in 55 days when he gets into office, being able to stop the war, so they want to escalate. I'm going to show you the New York Times, the quotes of the unnamed officials. These are the people that are really in control. These are the ones I said last week we need to see the impeachment of Biden and Harris and haul up Blinken and others from the State Department who are really running all this. This is nuclear blackmail against the world if the people of the planet demand peace. I have the New York Times article. It's behind a paywall, but we've got a copy of it. It's also quoted in Zero Hedge. It's up on Infowars.com as well. The magnitude of this is staggering. This is the greatest nuclear escalation of the nuclear age since they were proliferated in the 1950s. And since it started with the dropping of Fat Man and Little Boy on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. And you see the continued escalation of heavier and more advanced weapons. And now France announced yesterday they're going to join the U.S. and the U.K. in bombing inside Russia with high-powered precision, nuclear-capable missiles. You have Putin last week raining an intermediate-range ballistic missile down on a military factory complex and saying this is to show we can get past your missile defense systems, and we could have delivered multiple nuclear warheads on that missile. Smaller missiles, 5, larger ones up to 25 or more. You can put 100 MIRVs inside of a Starship. That's just a giant ballistic missile. If you go up to Real Alex Jones on X, and we'll put it on screen, end of the world alert. The Biden administration is proposing the transfer of nuclear weapons to Ukraine to be used against Russia. This constitutes the greatest and most dangerous nuclear escalation in history. Must watch, share, live feed. Now, this is obviously horrible news, but we knew this was coming. I'm on record saying I would expect this once President Trump was elected to hold a nuclear gun to his head, your head, every man, woman, and child's head on the planet. People don't tend to listen to me when I'm in the present tense, but they do listen when they see something from the past tense. So have an archivist find that. We even have the dates. I even found the videos where I said it. Here's one of them. Emergency report. President Xi orders Chinese military to prepare for imminent world war in response to NATO's plan to give nukes to Ukraine. That video only got 1.5 million views. Sounds like a lot. It's not. I do videos every day that get 50, 60 million views individually. Should have gotten 100 million views. It got fact-checked, though, and they said that's not true. Really, I just had Bild newspaper reporting it, and Zelensky saying he's 2 weeks from nukes, and NATO previous leaked proposals for it. Now, there it is, nuclear war alert, Ukraine to be given nuclear weapons under secret NATO plan, October 17th. So, and now they're openly proposing it. We'll break it all down when we come back. Stay with us.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want to stop tyranny? Well, so does he. Live from the Infowars.com studios, it's Alex Jones.
Still trending as of this morning on the top of X, the number one social site in the world, is will Elon Musk buy MSNBC? Will Elon Musk buy Infowars? And Elon has said he's interested in both. Now, that, though, should not be trending the top. And as of 10 minutes ago, before I went live, it was still not trending at the top. What should be trending at the top, but I'm sure it will be, instead of the NFL and Monday Night Football, U.S. officials discuss giving nuclear weapons to Ukraine. That is in the New York Times today. And I have the whole article here in front of me. It's behind a paywall, but we have the whole thing. I posted it on X and posted it on Infowars.com because it is of massive public interest, obviously. So, when you read what they say, and I'll read it to you, senior U.S. officials, Blinken, the CIA director and others, Secretary of State and others, say, well, Trump's about to get in 55 days, and we want to escalate things to make sure we don't give up to Russia. And so the answer is give nuclear weapons to Ukraine so they can nuke Russia if they don't stop. Well, no, Russia invaded because they said you're planning to make them a NATO member and give them nukes and use them as the trigger for war with Russia, which the neocons have been proposing for decades, working with Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was their main strategist. And now, for over a week, the United States, England, and now France is joining them, are bombing inside Russia with precision heavy cruise missiles. So this has already gone on. There's already been leaks out of NATO. There's already been prestigious publications. But by prestigious, I mean Bild is globalist, but it's pretty accurate on military and issues. Bild reported a month ago that Ukraine was 2 weeks from nukes. We've got top NATO officials calls on business leaders to prepare for wartime scenario. Germany and Sweden have told citizens to get ready for nuclear war. New York City is running TV ads of what to do during a nuclear war. They actually say, click on the local city app and go in your house if nuclear war happens. That's the last place you want to be, and there won't be any city apps operating during it. It's like giving somebody a Band-Aid for being shot in the head with a 12 gauge at point-blank range. Now, we didn't plan it this way. We didn't know this would break today, but General Flynn's been planning to come to Austin for a few weeks to be on the show. He is here in the second and third hour today. So in 51 minutes, the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, former top national security advisor to President Trump, and current advisor to him will be sitting right there, 6-7 feet away from me. So it'll be good to be able to talk to him, one of the leading experts on this, on the military, geopolitical systems, threat escalation ladders, and more. But when you read the New York Times article, it is stunning how honest they are that they want to escalate things and have total war before Trump gets in to stop a peace deal. And that's what the missile attacks have been about in the last week inside Russia by NATO. That is what all the announcements of imminent nuclear war and different public officials and head of the Ukrainian military saying World War III has already begun. He said that 36 hours after I said, within days, you'll be hearing World War III has begun. The chilling article hides behind a milquetoast headline. Trump's vow to end the war could leave Ukraine with few options. One question is whether the new administration in Europe will provide security guarantees to prevent Russia from taking more territory. Then you read the article by Helen Cooper, Andrew Kramer, Eric Schmidt, Julian Barnes. They say administration officials are proposing giving nuclear weapons. So a few months ago, it was proposing giving them hypersonic missiles you can put nukes on. And Russia said, if you move those up to our border, it'll be an act of war. We'll be at war with you. If you use them, we will be at war with you. Now that's been done. And now they're saying, okay, we're looking to give them, and look, it's the same missile, same bomb. They attack them. We're going to go ahead and just load hydrogen bombs on those. So that escalated quickly. Several officials even suggested that Mr. Biden could return nuclear weapons to Ukraine that were taken from it after the fall of the Soviet Union. Well, yeah, Russia had nukes stationed there. So the idea that it's returning, I mean the U.S., Russia took those. Here, you have some. Here. You play with a flamethrower in a firework factory. Let's go back to the piece. Several officials even suggest that Mr. Biden could return nuclear weapons to Ukraine that were taken from it after the fall of the Soviet Union. That would be an instant and enormous deterrent, but such a step would be complicated and have serious implications. Yeah. The mother of all megamac escalations. So we'll read more of it here in a moment. It's all up on Infowars.com. It's all up at Real Alex Jones on X. To say this is insane is an understatement. I'm here calmly covering it. We've known this was coming. This is the trajectory. And I've read articles last week where the globalists are saying, hey, a nuclear war would cleanse the earth of overpopulation. Then the shadow government can emerge from its bunkers and build its new utopian society. And what's really interesting is when senior NATO diplomats and officials leaked this as a trial balloon in October, I went and looked it up and said, yeah, Zelensky's asked for nukes. Zelensky's saying he could be 2 weeks from nukes, kind of wink, wink, they're already here, or to Russia. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. To try to get Russia to make some moves that would then legitimize NATO openly entering the war. And you read the New York Times, they admit that. We need to escalate this so NATO can officially come in and save Ukraine. And again, then Russia escalates again, and China joins in, and North Korea is already joining in. They've got defense alliances and defense treaties with Russia. And we're not in the beginning stages of World War III then, which we are already in the beginning stages. We're now leaving the first third of the beginning of World War III. We've been the last few years in the beginnings of it. Now we're leaving the preparatory phase, the beginning of World War III, and entering the start of the official World War. And then that, in every war game, escalates into limited nuclear strikes, and then retaliatory, and then escalatory, and then total commitment. An orgy of spasmodic releases. And then India decides to go ahead, or Pakistan decides to go ahead and nuke, vice versa. China decides to nuke. And then it's just everywhere. And then the reactors melt down all over the planet that are much worse than the radiation going off in bombs thousands of times, depending on how bad the meltdown is. And it is the end of the world as we know it. So if you thought the New World Order and the bankers that are coming to the end of their big Ponzi scheme, trying to launch their world government, their cashless society, carbon tax grid, we're going to give up. Think again, you haven't studied the psychology, the criminology, the sociopathy of megalomaniacs. So that's where we are on Monday, November 25th, 2024. And that's why Trump, for weeks, has been in constant, ongoing negotiations and true diplomacy with all the major players in NATO and with the Russians, the Chinese, and others. Phone calls with Zelensky, phone calls with Putin, and the media getting wind of that and saying, how dare them? Elon Musk involved trying to get Iran not to strike back so Israel can have its expansion of war. And the media saying, how dare him? And how dare Elon Musk be talking to Putin? and Zelensky. How dare them? They are the villains. Elon Musk is bad. He doesn't want a nuclear war. Donald Trump is evil. He doesn't want a nuclear war. So I am almost at a speechless point right now, because if you study military history, if you study threat doctrine, military postures, threat escalation ladders, and they don't want a peace deal. The neocons, the globalist power is coming to an end. A new era of peace and renaissance could be here. Instead of their great reset and poverty and social credit scores and AI, nightmare, tyranny, sane people could be in charge, and we could avert total disaster. But the general public has a normalcy bias. And if I got a group of fellow sports fans together and we went down to the Texas Capitol and waved our team's banners and painted our faces up, we'd be good Americans. But if we all got together and protested at all the capitals and demanded a stop to nuclear war escalation and the deepening of World War III, why, we're weirdos. And so there is an extreme geopolitical, military lack of knowledge, a massive historical military illiteracy. And people have lived in relative peace and harmony for so long in the lap of luxury, living off the freedoms and liberties and prosperity that our forebears toiled to build, that there is a very good chance that we're bare minimum going to be in a full conventional war with Russia and China. And if that happens, then it is a probability, according to all metrics and analyses, of total nuclear war. And you have all the European governments saying, get ready for imminent war. You got 800,000 German troops ready to invade Ukraine. You have the defense minister saying, prepare for nuclear war. You might want to have a week of food and water on hand, so when your house gets blown over on top of you, I guess you can find it. You might live a week or so. Well, I tell you one thing, this is going to end all the woke stuff real quick. I mean, this is going to end the football games real fast. Meanwhile, the UN, the CDC, the usual suspects ahead of Trump getting in, are hyping bird flu. And they've been doing this the last year, and every time later it comes out it wasn't true. Oh, man dies of bird flu. Later, not true. Oh, child has bird flu. Not true. Oh, bird flu in beef. Not true. Bird flu in cow milk. Not true. CDC confirms H5N1 bird flu infection in child in California. First case of bird flu infection in U.S. child confirmed in California, CDC. Bird flu found in California raw milk, and all they do is take a PCR test, turn it up 30, 40 times, its detector, point it at the milk, and then they get a bird flu reading and say bird flu, and everybody needs to wear hazmat gear, and you can't sell this, you got to destroy it. They already killed half the chickens this year in Australia with the same PCR crap. Let me explain it again. The inventor of the PCR test died a few years ago, but he explained that even when you set it right, it just is an indicator there might be something. You've got to do further test. But he said if you turn it up any higher than it's supposed to be, you get false positives. You turn it up 20, 30, 40 times, and the CDC would just order the people, the PCR tester and the COVID hysteria, to turn it up, you can point it at the air, and it's going to say there's COVID or bird flu or whatever they want. And I use the analogy because it's the same thing, really, of a metal detector. You can go to Walmart or wherever and buy a $150 metal detector, and it'll have different knobs on it. You can set it to steel or iron or gold or silver or whatever, nickel, whatever you're looking for. So you set it for that resonance of that metal, and then it sends out magnetic waves that bounce back, and it reads that with a computer chip in it. So you've got what you set it to, and you've also got the other knobs, but depending on how complex the metal detector is, where you turn up the sensitivity, and if you turn it up even halfway and aim it at the ground, it's going to tell you everything's there. Gold, silver, you name it. If there's nothing there, it's just turned up so high, it's just feeding back. Like if you turn up an amplifier all the way and then stick the microphone up to it, it's feedback. So you can aim a metal detector in the air and turn it all the way up. It's turned on low, turned on one, aim it in the air, nothing. Turn it up halfway, doop, doop, doop. Turn all the way up. Doop. So this is completely transparent horse crap, but they're definitely getting that ready for Trump to try to destabilize things. They've got war in beyond high gear, balls the walls, bum rush. You've got mayors and Democrats saying we need armed uprisings of black people against Trump. He's going to kill you. Yet the mayor of Denver saying we're going to physically resist with citizens ICE when they come to Denver. Yeah, I forgot about Fauci. That was back in the mid-'90s. Tens of thousands of kids he tested AIDS drugs on that didn't even have AIDS till they died. Yeah, he doesn't just remove the larynxes of beagles and then put flesh-eating worms on them. No, he kills kids. So these are psychotic frauds. And if you study criminology with any psychotic or even a sociopath, in the case of serial killers, this is a good snapshot example. They'll go out and do their first few murders and be real careful about it and plan it out and wear gloves and get rid of the body properly. But by the 5th, 6th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 20th person they kill, they start getting reckless, getting crazy, because subconsciously they hate themselves. They want to stop. They want to be caught. And they'll start, a lot of times, mailing letters to the police. You're stupid. You can't stop me. I'm going to strike in the next week. And that's what Fauci is. That's what Bill Gates is. They get off on it. Bill Gates, yeah, we just take experimental mRNA and modify the kids' genetics. We just shoot it right in their vein. I mean, yeah, we're going to kill old ladies, and that's a death panel. Yeah, we got to cut the carbon of people down to zero. You know what that means? Get rid of all the people. And the TED TV crowd laughs because they're in on the death cult. They're not really in the death cult, but they've been indoctrinated in it. There's too many people, and we're going to have government-forced assisted suicide. You know, they read the New York Times, looking forward to the end of humans, Wall Street Journal, looking forward to the end of humanity. The future's not, and they're just self-appointed psychotics. And now, I've been telling you they're going to give those missiles to the Ukrainians once President Trump's president-elect. And then they're going to start bombing, and then all these other NATO countries. I said first it'll be the U.S., then England, then France, because that's how they always do it. And next it'll be Poland, starts bombing. And then if the Russians don't escalate like they want back, they can't be baited into it. Well, we'll just give nuclear weapons to Ukraine then. And that way, I guess they think in history, when nuclear war starts, they'll go, oh, it wasn't NATO did this, it was Ukraine, and they were invaded, so they had a right to use nukes. That's the weird legalese. They think their world government will survive the nuclear war, and they'll have their big show trials and go after all their enemies, and then their judges at the UN, whatever underground base they're holding these hearings at in the future, that they will be history's victors, and they're doing it all legal, they think. Ending the world as we know it, all legal. And here's really what I'm saying. You got the Secretary of Defense and you got the neocons, Bolton, all of them running around saying, oh, Russia's bluffing. They won't do anything. Let's just keep bombing them. And Russia's not bluffing. Invaded Ukraine, ICBM attack, demonstration of a nuclear strike, evading the countermeasures. And the globalist answer is, oh, it's just a bluff. No, they know it's not a bluff. They are starting and have already started World War III, and now they want it to be a nuclear World War III. And large groups of people in the government and in the globalist system, know they're going to lose power, know their New World Order is about to fail, their long 100-year plan, their transhumanist death cult plan, their eugenicist death cult plan. And so they are openly trying to destroy the earth, the surface of it. That's their attack on all the populations, on all the populist movements, on folks that don't want to eat bugs, that people that don't want to live under a social credit score. And they're like, really, you think you're going to get out of this? It's like a guy that beats his wife and has broken her jaw, broken her arm, put cigarettes out on her, and finally, one night at 3 a.m., the dog barks, and he looks out, and she's getting in the car with the kids, and he runs out there with a gun, and she's driving off, so he bears down and shoots into the back window, and the car pulls over to the side. He goes over and opens the car, and one of his kids is bleeding to death. The wife's been shot in the back of the head. Her brains are everywhere. And then what does he do? He just sticks a gun in his mouth before the cops get there. That happens all the time. And so we're with our kids out at the minivan at 3 a.m. and Rover starts barking. So the psychotic drunk husband goes, what's going on? He looks out the window and sees the wife running with suitcases and the 5-year-old and the 3-year-old climbing in the side of the minivan. And he goes, that bitch. That's the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, Bloomberg, all of them. He's got the gun, and he's bearing down right now. She's driving out of the driveway. So that's it. They're going to kill everybody, including themselves. They'll never get away with it. They'll all die, too. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Most people that research supplements and that are into health know that Irish sea moss and its benefits are documented and incredible. Well, our sponsor, the AlexJonesStore.com, happened to be able to get one of the top suppliers with the highest rated Irish sea moss to give them the authorization to private label it. So now it's Alex Jones Ultimate Sea Moss, exclusively available at thealexjonesstore.com. It is the ultimate superfood. The iodine, the trace minerals, the elements, the vitamins that are in this are incredible. They give you instant energy, instant focus, but as you take it for a few weeks, you feel the stamina, the libido, the mental clarity. It is a superfood. It is concentrated. So get Alex Jones Ultimate Sea Moss exclusively discounted at thealexjonesstore.com. And listen to this. 1 bottle is 40% off. 3 bottles is 55% off. And again, 1 bottle is 40%. Get yours today at thealexjonesstore.com. And I thank you for keeping us on the air.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show. If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance. Live from the Infowars.com studios, it's Alex Jones.
General Flynn is in the green room studying the latest developments. I just walked by and saw him in there, heavily in thought, so I didn't bother him. He'll be joining us coming up in about 26 minutes here in studio for several hours. former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Could not have a better guest with the news we're covering here. Let me just recap what I just talked about and then get into all the details here and give you my analysis and how dangerous this is, where this is going, and how we can collectively stop it. But the first thing I want to say is this. Pray to God to intercess and to touch the hearts and minds of people at every level connected to this to de-escalate. Pray that the globalist will be exposed. Pray that more whistleblowers will come out. Personally put pressure on Congress by people like Senator Paul and Hawley and some of the other congressmen that have been coming out and saying we need to start immediate impeachment of Biden and the coup for violating the war powers and starting the bombing of Russia in the last 8-9 days. That is completely insane. And Flynn last week was on the show, talked about emergency hearings in Congress that controls the purse and controls the power to declare war, to say we know Biden's not in charge, we know Harris isn't in charge, we know it's Blinken at the State Department, we know it's the CIA, we know it's some of the nuts at the top of the Defense Department. Who came up with the plan to start bombing Russia with these missiles that can easily be fitted with nuclear weapons? And Russia said if we see a bunch of these coming in, we have to consider them to be nuclear tipped, and we'll have to have a nuclear response. And then now administration officials are in the New York Times proposing giving them nuclear weapons, which is exactly what can be put on those ATACMS and Storm Shadows, and now the French missiles. France announced yesterday they're going to start bombing imminently. So there's that escalation. And they say in the New York Times article, I've already shown you some of the headlines, it's up on Infowars.com. They got it behind a paywall, but we posted it there for posterity because it's a major public interest. That they want to escalate this because they, quote, don't want to leave Ukraine in the lurch if Trump comes in. So they're stockpiling weapons and billions of dollars out of the State Department and Pentagon that is not earmarked for Ukraine illegally. Congress has the power of the purse, the power to declare war. The president then executes that. We don't have a real president. This is a global emergency, not just a national emergency. This is the greatest clear and present danger in modern military history. This is manifestly, exponentially more dangerous than the Cuban Missile Crisis because we did not have completely incompetent lunatics in charge. Reuters, AP have all reported for years, and they confirmed again last week, no one has talked to Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, or Vladimir Putin in years. Biden's, well, I want to talk to that guy, that punk. Played the clip last week. Reporters, what about World War III, sir? Shut up, I told you not to talk. Sit down and be quiet. Then he gets this crazy look in his eye. They probably did get that lunatic as the puppet president to go ahead and sign on to this because he loves it. He loves the power. He loves toying with destruction. He's like a moth to fire, the Promethean flame of hydrogen hellfire. So months ago they say give him the missiles, but we don't want the blame. Keir Starmer, all of them. And I said, watch, as soon as Trump's president-elect, they'll start bombing Russia as an escalation so that they can escalate it out of control even if Trump does get in. And now they're in the New York Times saying just that today. This broke 2 hours ago. And people, well, that's mainstream media. I know it's true. No. When the New York Times acts as the mouth of the establishment, it's real. Just like 2 Sundays ago, it breaks. Biden green lights, ATACMS missiles. 2 days later, they start dropping. I said, I expect England to join. That follows the pattern. Next day, they start bombing. I said, next it'll be France. France announced yesterday they're going to start the bombing. Then I predict Poland's next. They're all getting up to the edge of the cliff. You go first. You go first. And what did Russia say? Years ago, you put in ATACMS and Storm Shadows up at our border. and claim they're conventional, you can put hydrogen bombs on those in minutes. We consider that a secret sneak attack preparation. And now Putin said last week, if I see a large aerospace movement of aircraft and or missiles or both, not just 5 or 10 getting shot at a time, we have to nuke NATO targets. We have to get our nukes off the ground, our aircraft off the ground, or we'll be caught in a sneak attack on the ground. That is U.S. nuclear doctrine. That is Russian nuclear war doctrine. That is CHICOM nuclear doctrine. That is NATO nuclear doctrine. Do you think if 30 Russian submarines tomorrow popped up 12 miles off our coast and started firing missiles, that the Pentagon's going to wait and see if those have got hydrogen bombs on them? You take it as a nuclear sneak attack. By default, when a bunch of missiles start coming in, phone call gets made, the president meets for a few minutes, they're in tracking, total release, nuclear war. You don't just take out the submarines. You don't just try to shoot down the missiles because cruise missiles are coming in. ICBMs are getting launched. The nuclear bombers are inbound. And it comes in waves. And the world and the surface of the planet will be destroyed. Just like that. They have a nuclear war, World War III howitzer to our head. They don't have a shotgun. They don't have an AR-15. They don't have a 338 Lapua at our head. They have a giant nuclear cannon that's so big, it's like we're crawling into the end of it to get splattered across the universe. So 8 years ago, more than 8 years ago now, a little more than 8 years ago, on the eve of the election, 1 week before, we put out an emergency campaign ad for Trump in 2016 saying, vote November 8th like your life depends on it, because it does. Because Hillary said, I will go to war with Iran. I will go to war with Russia. If there's a cyber attack, we'll nuke them. And that's policy today. Well, look at Vault 7 and the CIA Snowden documents. The CIA all the time is running attacks out of other countries and blaming people. My God, I've had the deep state plant porn on our computers that we never opened and try to put us in jail for it. The FBI wasn't totally corrupt and said, no, InfoWars and Alex Jones are the victims of this. But do you think they're just planning stuff on us? So we're in a war. It's not a proxy war. It's not a shadow war. It's not a hybrid war. It's a war, a conventional war with Russia. I told you last Wednesday, I said within 48 hours you'll start hearing the announcement. And now you have NATO and the former head of the Ukrainian military and all and the Hill newspaper. Yep, World War III has begun. I don't write these headlines to be sensational. I think about it. I look at history, look at the doctrine. We were the first to announce at 10:45 Central that Trump was the winner on election night. General Flynn came on the morning and said he was going to win. But we knew. People said, well, how are you announcing? It's supposed to be CNN. No, we announce things when we see it's clear. We don't let them write the talking points. Just because they tell us 2 men can have a baby and there's no X and Y chromosomes, we don't listen to that. We set the agenda. We, the people. And we're not some central Borg where the globalists and BlackRock and the Carnegie Endowment and the CIA come out with some idea and then permeate it throughout society. General Flynn, Alex Jones, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson. We do research. We inspire each other. We talk to the other experts. We have a open college of public discussion with the facts. And when I tell you that we are in World War III, we are in the beginning stages of it. And when I tell you that it rapidly goes in almost every war game scenario to total nuclear war, that is a fact that's not even debated. So what can you do about it? General Flynn will be here in 15 minutes to talk about it. In studio, sitting right there. You can take the live feeds from Real Alex Jones right now and at AJN, Alex Jones Network, at AJN Live and at InfoWars on X, and you can repost it on X and say, the Biden administration is openly proposing, floating the idea, testing the water for what they want to do. I told you, they will bomb Russia with these missiles when they tested it 2 months ago in the New York Times, and then again 2 weeks ago, and then it started. They're not just proposing it like it's a scenario they're discussing. They're saying it because they want to get the rest of the system online, and they've already had the Lindsey Grahams and others up there, hell, the Speaker of the House, saying, yeah, let's give those bombs, let's give those missiles to Russia, to Ukraine to attack Russia. So they're trying to normalize this and have us sleepwalk into nuclear Armageddon. So I'm going to say it again very slowly. They have a nuclear gun to our head. They'd rather have a nuclear war they believe they'll emerge in control of the planet on the other side of, and they want to say Ukraine was invaded, so we gave them nukes, and then whatever happened, we're not sure, do a nuclear false flag, blame Russia, so they can emerge as the group that was the good guys and attacked first. They're trying to get Russia and China to strike first. They would rather burn the world down than lose power. They got a choice, go to prison or start World War III, nuclear war. And you're a normal person. You just like to go to church and work and your kids and your life and grandma and grandkids, and you just want to, you're normal. You don't want power. Well, you need to understand history, that you look at history, and the tyrannies are more common than freedom-loving countries. And we have the nastiest, most disgusting case of satanic pedophile scum, transhumanist death cult trash in charge. There's been a global awakening thanks to this audience of activists. You're at the core of the resistance. You're recognized as that. And so humanity's coming back from the dead, awakening, rising like the phoenix. And the power structure is we'll just release new viruses and start massive wars and get race wars going. And those are all the different ingredients, the different crises they've got cooked up and rolling out right now. But people are ahead of it now. When Democrat leaders say we're going to resist the ICE people and we're going to call out the citizens and have a civil war. And now those different Democrats, like the mayor of Denver, are like, oh, actually, that was illegal. I was just joking. Don't do that. Because people are putting heat on him saying, we don't know how this is going to end, but you're going to be held responsible, buddy. You want to play general and tell the public to go out and start attacking the feds in a constitutional duty. You are the one involved in insurrection. You are the one that wants to play soldier. And let me tell you, soldier boy, this thing kicks off to a real civil war. You're going to be held accountable. You understand that? You know what the penalty of that is once you're tried by a jury of your peers? You trigger a civil war and a bunch of dead people and riots all over this country. You'll be lucky if you just spend the rest of your life in a supermax prison and not at the end of a rope. So, we have entered the wheelhouse of Armageddon. Now, my phone's blown off the wall in the last week with other talk show hosts and other people, and even some of my own crew, though they love Trump and behind him, going, oh, well, these appointments are good, but the Surgeon General's a big pharma idiot and blah, 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 and oh, my God, Trump's not going to make all perfect appointments. It's his policies that matter. He's 10 times more awake and hardcore than he was. We haven't got him in office yet. The globalists are trying to start World War III, and they're cooking up new viruses and the bird flu hysteria. We need to be all hands on deck to expose and stop World War III. We need to be all hands on deck to protect President Trump. And then once he gets into office and once we dial back the military escalations and get the border under control and get energy flowing again, I will guarantee you he'll end up removing some of these people that, because look, Trump's really smart, but he's also compulsive. And I know that how the sausage gets made, okay? And so he gets told by people he likes this is a good person. He's just going bloop, 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 picking these people. Some are good, some are bad. The point is that we're spending more time as an awake patriot population bitching and complaining about what's going on around Trump instead of the elephant in the room. So we need main focus on stopping nuclear war, and then the border, getting energy down, stopping inflation. Trump's announced he's banning transgenders from the military. Trump's banning federal funds to all the woke crap. So I know everybody wants to be holier than thou and purist and all this stuff. But if you haven't been in charge of something, which most people haven't been in charge of a lot of people, if my crew wasn't fully behind me and doing a great job, we couldn't even operate, and they're all loyal and the best crew I've ever had. And I got a crew of like 45 people. Trump has tens of thousands of executives under him, millions of people that take orders from him. And some of these people have worked for the globalists. Now they've sworn allegiance to America. A lot of that's going to turn out to be real. A lot of it isn't. Some people are total patriots. The globalists are going after them. Those issues will be dealt with. But you don't want to wake up next week and they say the Iranians have shot down his airplane with a surface-to-air missile and we're at war with Iran, and you know it's going to be the deep state. You don't want to wake up next week getting blown out of your bed when the ceiling falls on you because a hydrogen bomb detonated 10 miles away. You, in my view, need to be praying and politically engaged on the big issues. And because the ship's sinking right now. Trump is not the captain yet. And he's got behind-the-scenes détente going on and trying to get Putin to come out and say, propose a ceasefire to put it on Zelensky, who said he won't. So I'm going to say it again. The globalists are in the New York Times saying, we want to hand Trump a disaster. We want to make sure this war doesn't end. We want to not leave the poor Ukrainians behind with their dictator Zelensky. We want to escalate this. We're looking at giving him nuclear weapons. And a few months ago, we're looking at giving him the missiles that deliver the weapons. And the Russians said, we know you're going to give him the missiles first and the nukes next. And Zelensky was begging for the nukes. And major diplomats told Bild in October that the word was they were going to get nukes. They probably wouldn't give them the missiles, even the nukes, much less the nukes, if Trump wouldn't have been elected. But when he got elected, that pushed the globalists into crisis mode to hold us all hostage. So I'm not spending a lot of time on it coming out in court documents that Michael Bloomberg has been behind the fake lawsuits against me with his National Gun Control Group and the PR firms and the rigged court cases and the fake auction. That's important. That's a big deal. But it's not compared to nuclear war. Yeah, it's trending the top of everywhere. Elon Musk talks about buying InfoWars. Okay, great. That raises my profile. I only see that as useful to get people to understand how much danger we're in from nuclear war. Okay? So we need priorities here, in my view. And I don't think anybody can debate me that the main priority is stopping nuclear war and getting President Trump into office and keeping him alive. Because he does mean well. He is a patriot. He's not out to get you. He's got a coalition of rebels and mavericks who are conservative, who are liberal. That's how you build a coalition. And if any of those people go sideways, he'll remove them just like that. But text messages, emails, phone calls, blowing me up. Talk about the Surgeon General. Talk about the woman's an idiot. Wants to ban tobacco, wants to make you take shots, wants to make kids wear masks. She's a kookball. Okay, Trump got bad advice, whatever. He'll be in charge of policy, and we'll cross that bridge. But that isn't even on my radar screen right now. exposing them wanting to bring back a new pandemic. That is. And we're exposing it. So we got to triage things. And triage is a medical military term for those that don't know. Whereas a 2,000-pound bomb gets dropped in the middle of a town. And obviously someone whose head's completely blown off or someone that's blown in two and obviously dead, you don't go check on them. And then next you see people that are badly injured but that you can save, and you've got to then figure out, okay, who's the most injured I can still save versus who is the least injured, they can wait. So the dead can wait to be buried, and the people that are just wounded but not grievously, they can wait. Who is the most hurt that you can save? Okay, so I'm doing the same thing here politically. All right, we're going to go to break. Now, there's a paradox here. I get so focused on stopping this that I think we will stop it. I don't want to believe my kids are all about to die. I don't want to believe we're actually about to have nuclear war. But if we don't admit it's a threat, it could happen. And it's becoming a probability on the current path. But if I don't focus on our own issues here at InfoWars, we'll get shut down. There's a hearing today, status conference. The judge says he's not going to probably rule today on InfoWars' future. He wants a full evidentiary hearing, and he is pissed. That's at 2 p.m. today. Regardless, I need money. I'm suing the Democrat Party and their conglomerate that tried to falsely get the company. We have got a very strong case. My lawyers think that it's hard that we don't win, but we've got to depose these people and go after them. I got a bunch of other lawsuits against these people, and that's gearing up towards conspiracy to violate rights, criminal stuff. Because this is real organized conspiracy against the First Amendment, against yours truly, and against your right to hear this information. But the main reason is we need to keep this broadcast on air. Even if this gets shut down, the Alex Jones Network stands ready. But it takes funds to do that, so we make it easy. The AlexJonesStore.com is not owned by InfoWars, not owned by me. It's a huge sponsor. So even if the bad guys take this over, that won't be taken over. That will be the new ship, the main new sponsor. Incredible supplements, incredible Patriot gear, limited edition posters that are fundraisers. So you have a memento that you supported at a key time. That's why they're marked up. But you get a great deal on the supplements and Patriot apparel. I need you to take action, plus their great products, thealexjonesstore.com. This broadcast is the most on-target, hardcore. We're reaching tens upon tens of millions of new people a day. We have great energy gummies, sleep gummies. The ultimate sea moss is the ultimate seafood superfood. It's got equivalent of 40 grams of sea moss in each serving, 2 capsules. Full of the best iodine, full of the best vitamins and minerals. Just a true superfood. You want Ultimate Sea Moss, up to 55% off when you get 3 bottles, 50 when you get 2, 40% off when you get 1. It's amazing. The Hydra Force. It's all the vitamins and minerals and electrolytes. It's a great product. You love Vitamin Mineral Fusion, you'll love it. Become a VIP member for $30 a month. Get $40 to spend in the store. And other special offers and discounts. So many other great products at thealexjonesstore.com. We can't do it without you. I want to thank all those that have supported and tell those that haven't. We're fighting for you. Please fight for us.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA.
A few weeks ago, when I saw Elon Musk in Pennsylvania with Trump at Butler, and he had that dark MAGA hat on, I said, we've got to have our own. And we've come out with it. Yeah, we can put one out that just says Make America Great Again, and that's available at thealexjonesstore.com. But I personally like this one. Murdered Out. It fits great, and it funds the InfoWar and supports President Trump. And if you don't like Murdered Out, we got it white on black. So get yours right now, and a bunch of other great designs of hoodies and T-shirts and top-of-the-line supplements that all fund the Second American Revolution at thealexjonesstore.com. Let me show you a few more of these. Now that the FDA admits fluoride does lower your IQ and give you cancer and infertility, it's a great time to wear one of these beautiful hats, and it's a great way to start a conversation and warn people. Here's the classic Make America Great Again Murdered Out, and we've got the Save the Frogs, over 50 designs, all at thealexjonesstore.com, and it keeps us on air, and it spreads the word. Please go to alexjonesstore.com and get your Patriot gear.
The bottom line on nuclear weapons is that when the president gives the order, it must be followed. There's about 4 minutes between the order being given and the people responsible for launching nuclear weapons to do so. As president, I will make it clear that the United States will treat cyber attacks just like any other attack. We will be ready with serious political, economic, and military responses.
They're voting for peace on planet Earth if they vote for Trump. But if they vote for Hillary, it's war.
We came, we saw, he died.
With her, you'll end up in World War III.
I want the Iranians to know that if I'm the president, we will attack Iran.
Right now, Senator, for us to control all of the airspace in Syria would require us to go to war against Syria and Russia.
The U.S. military has just raised the threat level to DEFCON 2. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton is still threatening Russia with military action following unconfirmed reports of further hacking. It's like she's not even concerned about the repercussions.
Of course not, because she's...
Look, there's a really loud noise.
All right, looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. We'll try to get Leanne back on in a few minutes.
When the president gives the order, it must be followed.
I am very concerned that the people who have hated Trump for 8 years and run out of ways to destroy him, indicting him, well, first calling him a racist, spying on him with the federal intel agencies, sicking the FBI on him, trying to put him in prison, then trying to kill him at least twice, probably more, actually, but at least twice. And that those people, out of options, have decided the only way to stop Trump and the disclosure that a Trump administration will bring, once again, disclosure is what they fear, having their crimes revealed, that the only way to stop Trump is with a world war. And so I've been pretty fixated on that for months, probably more than a year. I've just thought a lot about it, and I know a lot of the people involved, and they're very, very, very focused on war. Permanent Washington doesn't care about domestic policy, in case your viewers, I'm sure, know this, but just want to restate it. They don't care about domestic policy. They don't care about fixing the country, closing the borders, ending the drug crisis, getting the cartels out of, the entire Southwest. They don't care about that. What they care about is exercising power abroad, killing people because it makes them feel like God, and making money. And that's where the money is, trillions of dollars. So they care about foreign policy. And I have been concerned and remain concerned that that group of people, which is basically everyone in D.C. in both parties, wants Trump to take the country to war, either against Russia or, far more likely, Iran. And I think what people outside, I don't know how to the degree to which this is understood, but I just will say it. A war with Iran is a world war. This is not 2002. Iran is now part of a coalition that includes the biggest economies in the world and the largest militaries in the world. So a war with Iran means a war in effect, or, by proxy, but still a war with Russia, China, Turkey, and a lot of the rest of the world. So that's a world war. It's not just as simple as we're going to take out their nuclear facilities. Okay. How are you going to do that? And how are you going to ensure that that doesn't destroy the United States in the process? And of course, they don't care whether it destroys the United States. That's the actual answer. They don't care. And if they cared, they would pause and think about it. But anyway, I don't want to be bitter about it. But to me, it's really simple. Anybody who would even consider having a war with Russia or Iran should not be in any position of power at all in this administration or any other administration. It's super simple. And I think especially Ukraine is so obvious. Now, there is some debate on Iran, and I'm not endorsing Iran. I'm not a Shiite. But there's really no debate at this point about the debacle that has been Ukraine.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
It's just completely.
Defending the Republic from enemies, foreign and domestic. It's Alex Jones.
We are now into hour number 2 of this Monday, November 25th, 2024 broadcast. I'm your host, Alex Jones, coming to you from the embattled InfoWars studios in Austin, Texas. And General Flynn, Michael Flynn, is our guest for the next 2 hours. He's the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, former top national security advisor to President Trump, and, of course, been a major political target of the deep state. But with your help and God's grace, defeated that. And he is one of the top brains in the world, of just a few that we could have here today, with the biggest escalation, I believe, in the nuclear age towards nuclear war. And that, of course, is the New York Times announcement that senior administration officials, this was an announcement just like a week and a half ago through the New York Times, that Biden authorized the bombing of Russia with attack of missiles, which then 2 days later began. Then England, now France is announcing it. England's already bombed the UK. They've formed this new northern group, even if Trump gets NATO to back down. This new northern group led by the UK and Germany and Poland says they're going to continue the war. And in the New York Times article, just for new listeners joining us, I covered it last hour, they're saying, well, we can't just let Trump have peace. We've got to escalate this and give Ukraine nuclear weapons. So they are floating that. They are proposing that, just like they did in the last few months, giving them the ATACMS and Storm Shadows. They've done that. So that they are seriously trying to bring the world to the verge of a hot war. And I was just talking to General Flynn before we went live. He's about to exclusively, this is what he does for a living, top expert on the deep state. And he said there was a good chance they would try civil unrest and crisis and martial law, but I'm about putting words in your mouth. But you said now it looks like that is where they're going. So we're about to lay out real-time scenarios with the globalists that are so desperate they either go to prison or they start World War III. General Flynn, thank you for being here. GeneralFlynn.com. Your new books on asymmetrical warfare. All of it is invaluable. Everybody should visit and follow everything you do at GeneralFlynn.com. And thank you for coming here to Austin, Texas, just for our broadcast, sir. I'm going to try to, as best I can now, really for the most of the hour, give you the floor. Then I've got a lot of questions. And also, we're going to post a link on X for people's questions to you. Mm-hmm. In fact, we should launch an X Spaces and take some questions or comments next hour. We'll do that as well. But General Flynn, thank you.
Do that. Yeah, I would really love to. I'd love to do that, especially get questions. I think there's a lot of questions out there right now. So when all this began, with the exchange of these weapon systems, right? This firing, the allowance of the ATACMS to shoot across the border and all this sort of thing, right? These are events that all occurred, and you have to look at these, in like the so what. And so I took, and I've been talking about this for a long, long time, actually, months, if not years. And I just remind people that the original regional war in Ukraine started in February of 2014. So that was during the Obama administration. Of course, Trump was able to kind of keep things in check because of his great leadership. And then, of course, when Biden came in 2020 or after in 2021, then we started to build back up. And this is where we're at right now. So we had this monumental victory where President Trump won a huge victory here, and a mandate, they call it, I guess. So the last couple of days I've been going through, what I do, right? What I do for a living is one of the things that I do is I look at scenarios that can play out, and I lay them out. And I actually wrote a document the other day, and like Alex has got his stuff here. I kind of went through the last probably 4 or 5 months of news articles that I do, right? Research that I do and things that I look at. And much of this stuff is starting to play out. One of the scenarios that I'm going to just tick these off real quick. I put out 5 the other day. One is the continued assassination of President Donald J. Trump. I still firmly believe that is on the table. I do not think for a second that conversation has been taken off by these people that want to get us involved in essentially a military industrial complex, sleepwalking, whatever you want to call it, war, World War III. So the second scenario is really this idea of conventional resistance, and conventional resistance is really where, it's just to try to create the conditions where there's no coming back, and you have this conventional march to essentially what would be turn from a regional war to a world war. One of the things, and it is breaking today, the United Kingdom and France, in a way, are threatening the incoming Trump administration that if Trump removes aid from Ukraine, both those countries are threatening to send troops into Ukraine. And I don't get the thinking there, but that's out there today. That's breaking news today. The third scenario is violent resistance, and we've seen that in the summer of 2020. We've seen that with Antifa. We've seen that in the streets of America over many years. Really, I mean, they just go to violent resistance in the streets and they try to draw us into something, right? The fourth scenario is provoking war, which is really where I think we're at right now, and then. The fifth scenario, and this is all, you can find this at generalflynn.com. The fifth scenario is the false flag war. And I actually think that there's a combination of all of them. So here's where I believe we're at, and I thought about this overnight, as I was coming out here to meet with Alex and to sit down with you and your great audience. So what might happen? I believe sitting here today, because number one, these people want to cause Donald Trump's agenda, which is principally domestic and economic, to completely collapse before he's even able to take office on Inauguration Day. I firmly believe that. I mean, the whole thing about getting rid of the illegals, the deportation campaign, his reemergence of the energy sector in this country, all the kinds of things that he wants to do, these people want nothing to do with that. They want to continue in their sort of seats of power and this money-making machine that they have, not only in the U.S. military-industrial complex, but also the global military-industrial complex, which is a huge, a multi-trillion-dollar enterprise that NATO has, that we pay a lot of money into. So where are we? And I think now, as I sit here, and we were talking about this prior to coming on here today, that I still believe that they're going to try to figure out a way to get rid of Biden. So all that said about Trump, all that said about Ukraine and NATO and all, I actually think that these people they're going to take a hard look at how can they get rid of Biden. And I wrote about this, a couple of weeks back about, the 25th Amendment. If it's not the 25th Amendment, then we should, in fact, I think I came on your show and we talked about the impeachment process. There was, I think Congressman Self is one of them out of Texas, I believe, that put up impeachment proceedings. Of course, Congress goes on Thanksgiving recess, and we've seen nothing, right? I mean, we are marching toward war here. And, Alex, you used the phrase sleepwalking toward war. We are sleepwalking toward World War III. So I think that one of the things that they're contemplating is taking Biden out. That then puts Harris in, and whoever they make the vice president, and they can choose anybody. Kamala Harris, at that point in time, she can appoint anybody in the country to be the vice president. Then I think what they're going to do is they're going to contemplate their additional sort of subset scenarios, okay? And what are they? What might they be? Well, one might be a declaration of martial law. Another might be a implementation of a national security emergency order. And I can tell you that I wrote about this quite a while ago, probably 4 or 5 months ago. There are 43 of them. And I put this out on, I wrote an article. It was the second of a two-part article called Their Plans for Us. You can find it at generalflynn.com. And the subtitle is A State of Emergency. There are 43 states, there are 43 national emergency orders that can be implemented by the President of the United States. And not all of them deal with what we're talking about here specifically, but many of them deal with overseas scenarios, things that might happen if this, then that. And these are things that the President of the United States, many of these actually go back to the 60s. and they're still on the books. If one of them is initiated, it kicks in about 150 different laws. It sort of opens up the door, if you will. It opens up, another Pandora's box, if you will. So we have this situation where if this happens, so again, this is a scenario. It is not an unlikely scenario. People will, they'll say all kinds of crazy things. But so what I'm saying is that if they want to continue down this path, and I firmly believe that they want to continue down this path to draw us into a much greater World War III. We're already in the throes of it. We've seen all the back and forth these last couple of weeks. The only people that are really covering it honestly is right here, Alex Jones, and there have been a few others out there, but I think I flipped around the last couple of days, and I got up early this morning to just kind of complete my research, and I'm going through all the different I call them the opposition networks, the enemy networks, right? I mean, all the big ABC, CBS, NBC. Went through MSNBC, CNN, Fox, and a couple others to see what they were talking about. None of them are even talking about any of this stuff. I mean, this is such a dangerous situation that we are involved in. The other thing that I started to look at was alliances, the various alliances that we have. And one of the things that I'd done probably years ago was I did an entire roadmap of China and how is China building up itself to essentially be the great power of the 21st century. And remember, we're already in the third decade of the 21st century. So how does China relate to what is going on in this essentially regional war of Eastern Europe, which has now turned into World War III? And this is no kidding. Whether it's a new alliance that's formed with this northern group out of Europe, or whether it's this funny a relationship that's now developed between the United Kingdom and France, who are coming out with a lot of rhetoric about very, very offensive, provocative rhetoric. I mean, all these types of things that are going on, the exchange of these missiles. I mean, in the ATACMS, the ICBM, IRBM, it doesn't matter. They're all nuclear capable. The types of mines that they have put on that they're allowing to put on the battlefield. We've restricted those forever. So there are actions being taken, and you have to wonder, who the hell is in charge? I mean, where are these people? I mean, we've joked about Biden being, lost in the forest down there in South America, Kamala Harris on leave, I think, out in Hawaii, or on vacation out in Hawaii. And so what might happen over these next couple of days? I think we're going to see additional provocations, and I mean extreme provocations. Does not appear like Zelensky wants to sit down or have any kind of reasonable conversation about any of the peace proposals that are on the table right now. I do believe, in fact, we know it, and I think you've talked about it, there is zero communications between the United States government and the Russian government right now, Putin and Biden. I mean, there has been no conversations. I used to work in the Pentagon. One of the jobs that I had, I was the senior intelligence officer in the Pentagon on the Joint Staff, and one of the responsibilities that we had was that there was an area downstairs in the Pentagon where we used to run these various exercises, and one of the places that I have been, and we actually did have to execute it one time, we had to use it one time, was the hotline. And when we went to use the hotline, it was between my boss at the time, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and his counterpart in Russia to be able to speak to each other. We did it up through various means, and they were able to communicate when certain things were happening. And I want to, again, we are trying to, and we've done a marvelous job of pushing Russia into the embrace of China. And China, that's why I talked about China, and this whole initiative of China that they have had for years now. And this goes back probably to the turn of the century here. So it goes back, 20, 25 years, and actually earlier when you start to think about their planning to get to where we are today. So China sees itself as the global superpower for this century, and they're marching in that, and they're marching very steadily, right? And they're moving along, and they're sticking to their plan, and they are going to try to achieve a set of alliances. I mean, the just to give you an example, I think the One Belt, One Road initiative of China, which has everything to do with what we're talking about in Ukraine, has everything to do with keeping this power structure going, making the money that they need to make, changing the dynamics of the world that they want to change. They being these globalists out of the World Economic Forum and out of some of these other globalist organizations. And there are people that are running countries right now, like Macron out of France, Kearns out of the United Kingdom, Trudeau out of Canada, as examples. So you have about 130 to 140 nations on the planet that represents about 75% of the world's population. China has some type of relationship or access into that many nations of the planet right now. That's been going on for almost 20 years, and we have not stunted that at all because we've had globalists after globalists after globalists inside of our government. The government that Trump is now trying to take apart, right? They're going to have a very, very difficult time. I applaud everything that Elon is doing, that Vivek is doing, and that Trump wants to achieve. But I can tell you, I have great access still inside the government to people inside the Department of Defense, people inside the intelligence community, and there's good people in there. But I can tell you, they are already saying that the folks coming in, whether it's Ratcliffe over at the CIA or Tulsi up at DNI, that's the intel community sort of big blockers and tacklers, or Hegseth if he can get through confirmation at the Department of Defense. Most people don't know, Alex, and for your audience, but the largest intelligence component in the United States government is the Defense Department. Okay, the Defense Department has, when you look at in totality, it has most of the intelligence resources for the country. You have, of course, your CIA, and you have other outside or other external to the Department of Defense.
The military is where the rubber meets the ground.
The military is where it's all at. And you're talking about all the four services have huge, particularly the Army, huge intelligence components. You got the Defense Intelligence Agency, you have National Security Agency, you have the National Geospatial Agency, you have the National Reconnaissance Office. I mean, these are giant chunks, right, of the Defense Department. And we have a Secretary of Defense right now. I haven't seen hide nor hair of any statements, anything coming out of there other than provocative and provocations that we...
What did you make of Austin, the Secretary of Defense, saying it's a bluff? I mean, the Russians...
Yeah.
The Russians didn't bluff when they took over Crimea in 2014 or 16. They weren't bluffing 3 years ago when they invaded, and they weren't bluffing when they fired that intermediate-range ballistic missile that Putin said was a test of successful nuclear weapon delivery system evading anti-missile systems.
Yeah, and so that was one of the scenarios I talked about, was this idea of conventional resistance. And so that is incorrect thinking, okay? Because there's this very misunderstood concept of deterrence, right? Deterrence. And deterrence has always been, because of mutual assured destruction, right? MAD, right? It's crazy, right? But mutual assured destruction and deterrence. Deterrence is something that is misunderstood. People will say, well, it's worked for a long time. But what we just witnessed was the firing of nuclear-capable weapon systems that the United States government gave to and allowed, and then had to have given the capability to be able to launch those to hit precise targets. ATACMS is a nuclear capable. It can fire two different types of warheads. One is nuclear. The other is, of course, conventional. And then the response, which was clear. I mean, it was an unambiguous response to demonstrate that, look, we can do the same thing. And if we decide to put nuclear ordnance on that ICBM or IRBM, we can do just the same thing, and we can actually hit targets, because the targets that were launched at by the ATACMS apparently were not hit. And so, what we have to do is we have to really look hard at what the Russian, and Alex has talked about this a long time now, but this Russian doctrine, this Russian nuclear doctrine. So Austin talking like that is incorrect. I mean, he may be getting briefed on that. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that, that what he's telling us is the truth or what they actually believe. But I'm going to sit here and warn everybody that this is not a time to think conventionally. This is a time to look at actions and look at capabilities and look at resources and look at how they are. I can tell you that an organization like the National Geospatial Agency, the National Security Agency, if they're doing their jobs, and this is where President Trump comes in, because as the incoming president-elect of the United States of America, he has full authority to get access to every single bit of intelligence that's being briefed to President Biden, if Biden's even getting briefed, if he's even awake. So he has the full authority and the full capability to be able to get that same intelligence, because it's supposed to be a peaceful transfer and transition of power from one president to another. I don't know if they're doing that. I don't know if they're giving him that kind of information. I do believe that one of the things that President Trump needs to be asking for right now, he needs to be asking for very specifically, get all that other garbage intel out of my way about, what's happening in South America, what's happening in the Pacific. Get all that out of their way, because it's all set up. And ask specifically questions about nuclear movements, not only in the Black Sea, in the Baltic, but on the ground, on the movement of missile capabilities and launch capabilities. Look at the communication systems. I want to see all that. Get the best nuclear weapons experts that we have in this country, which he has the full authority and the full responsibility to do. Get them down at Mar-a-Lago immediately. Have them sit down, brief your entire national security team. I understand that most of the national security team and most of the folks are still down there doing, more additional cabinet picks. But get them in there and get somebody with some level of knowledge. And I'm saying that we have people in the government that can do this, but there's also experts outside the government that in some cases either supported or worked in the government at one time. Get them down there now and start looking at the intelligence. And when they start to show you things, have them make you a believer that what you're actually being briefed on, what they're showing, is true. I mean, drill down right now. Because once you lay that out, and now I'm talking directly to President-elect Trump down.
General Flynn, we've got a hard satellite break. You'll have the floor. This is so important. We're so blessed that you happen to be here today, right when this historic escalation of Biden saying we're looking to give nukes to Ukraine and then use that as the proxy, I guess, to start full world war. We'll be right back with General Flynn. It's the Alex Jones Show. Stay with us. Most people that research supplements and that are into health know that Irish sea moss and its benefits are documented and incredible. Well, our sponsor, the AlexJonesStore.com, happened to be able to get one of the top suppliers with the highest rated Irish sea moss to give them the authorization to private label it. So now it's Alex Jones Ultimate Sea Moss, exclusively available at the AlexJonesStore.com. It is the ultimate superfood. The iodine, the trace minerals, the elements, the vitamins that are in this are incredible. They give you instant energy, instant focus, but as you take it for a few weeks, you feel the stamina, the libido, the mental clarity. It is a superfood. It is concentrated. So get Alex Jones Ultimate Sea Moss exclusively discounted at the AlexJonesStore.com. And listen to this. One bottle is 40% off. 3 bottles is 55% off. And again, 1 bottle is 40%. Get yours today at the AlexJonesStore.com. And I thank you for keeping us on the air.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show. Waging war on corruption. It's Alex Jones, coming to you live from the front lines of the InfoWar.
All right, if you are a new viewer or new listener or just a regular listener, we have millions of new people tuning in every day. General Flynn is recognized, even in the Obama administration, as the smartest or most informed general who predicted in his secret briefings over the years everything that came true. China double-crossing, all of it. And so there's a lot of generals that just basically sit at desk all day. But he's a real general. He was the head intelligence officer in the military. And then, of course, Trump's top national security advisor and a number one target of the deep state when Trump got in 8 years ago. So he understands the lay of the land inside the executive branch and also inside the Pentagon, and then now traveling the country, waking the people up. And he laid out so many huge issues in the last 30 minutes that I want to have him continue with his overall briefing, and then I want to drill back in. But you came on last week and said we need to 25th Amendment him right now or impeach him right now. People didn't understand that means it goes to Congress, and now it's basically a trial of who's in there. Harris can be removed. Speaker Johnson's not much better, but better. We weren't saying put Kamala in, but they clearly are planning to do something like that and use this escalation, as you were saying, to somehow keep Trump out. So can you elaborate on the scenarios? And I know you have a lot of background in each scenario that would take an hour to go over each little piece, but they're pre-programming everywhere civil unrest and Kamala being in and all of this. And so what would they use to do that? What are the sub-scenarios of that? And then explain to people, because I know you're an expert on this, and I had constitutional experts on agreeing with you, and we have Congressman Massey and Senator Hawley and others saying the same thing. You don't just get rid of Biden during a 25th Amendment operation. You get rid of Harris as well. But barring that, how do we put pressure on the runaway train, on who is in command? Who are these unnamed officials saying, well, we're going to escalate so that there'll never be peace before Trump gets in? And then, as you said, you have this new northern group forming, England and France saying, if Trump tries to pull out, we'll just officially ourselves go to war. So holding us hostage to nuclear war as well. This is true madness. So the globalists aren't giving up. They've doubled down. Please continue, General Flynn.
Yeah. And they've absolutely doubled down. And the big why is to completely disrupt President Donald J. Trump's agenda going into this next presidency. I mean, upset it. I mean, his principal agenda item, when you really dig down deep, is this deportation campaign, closing our border, basically making the streets of America safer, getting our economy jump-started again, releasing the energy resources of this country. So all these domestic-focused issues which would take away from the power base of the globalists, which the power base of the globalists has everything to do with this continuation of perpetual war. It doesn't make any difference where it's at. And right now it's over in, it's contained to a degree in Europe. And with this, but we are in the throes of World War III. As I said earlier, the United Kingdom and France have already said that they've sort of threatened Trump by saying, well, if you withdraw aid, we're gonna be sending troops in. Like, so what? So what if you do that? I mean, you think that Trump has to respond to that? And I think Trump will. And in fact, I know he'll be smart enough to know what to do. But a lot of people have asked since I started to talk about this last week. If you do the 25th Amendment and you get rid of Joe and Joe Biden, and then you have Harris, you do an impeachment proceeding of President Biden, and you have Harris. You have Harris. Okay, well, there is then the burden to put on her and what she might do. So Congress has to stay awake at the switch here. And I mean, they're going to go on recess. I got all that, but you gotta, folks. Speaker Johnson, you got to pay attention to what is going on globally, because the foreign policy and the foreign wars are what the globalists want. They couldn't beat the mandate that Trump just had in November. They couldn't, the too big to rig, however you want to state it. Trump won, and it upset their momentum, and it upset their plans going into the remainder of this decade and further into this century. So the advent of World War III, we are in the midst of it. The exchange of very provocative nuclear-capable weapons have already occurred. Alex has done an amazing job over these last couple of weeks, really talking about, and I know he and I have talked about this, talking about the shift in Russia's nuclear policy, talking about first use, and I want people to, he asked me prior about Secretary Austin and what Secretary Austin's comments were. And I think that, what Putin did when he fired this missile, he gave what I call the ultimate warning, okay? The ultimate warning. And there are really, and I kind of, I crafted a little bit of this, and again, people can go to generalflynn.com because I post quite a bit of this, or at Gen Flynn on X. But there's really two camps that are forming now. And I can see these two camps. And one, is within is in the sort of the Trump orbit, the greater Trump orbit. And there are some people that are, certainly the American people. And one of those camps is, I call it reason and peace, sort of the camp of reason and peace. Let's use good common sense. Let's use reason in what is happening. Let's try to calm things down. Let's try to figure out, what is a negotiated peace look like? What will a negotiated peace look like? And there are all kinds of different avenues and options on the table right now to take or to apply for a peace agreement. But the biggest thing that has to happen right now is there's got to be a ceasing of the killing that is occurring. That's camp number one. The second camp, and I call it the camp of unconsciousness or connivance, okay, that will lead to war. The camp of unconsciousness or connivance. The unconsciousness component of that camp is sitting in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue right now. There's an unconscious, Alex uses the word sleepwalking. There's an unconsciousness that is occurring that you have to say, okay, part of that unconsciousness is a conventional thinking that no one's going to use a nuclear weapon here. Well, let me tell you, folks, what I just said about 5 minutes ago, the ultimate warning message from Vladimir Putin not to Ukraine, but to the West, to say, hey, folks, look, we are not, I have a responsibility. Now I'm putting my feet, which I've had to do for my entire military career, was to put my feet into the boots of our enemies, okay? So my analysis of where President Putin is at is he's got to sit there with his own people and say, we are going to protect the sovereignty of our country. We are going to protect the safety and security of our citizenry. And I can't allow a nuclear-capable, offensive, provocative weapon to be fired into Russia without some type of response, without some type of adjustment in my military and in my political, my diplomatic posture. If everybody listen to, and people need to do this, you need to listen to the messaging coming out of Russia. And I'm really now speaking to not just, the audience, Alex's great audience. I'm speaking to people at Mar-a-Lago, this unconscious crowd that's in Washington, D.C., part of the deep state, that is going to sit there and go, oh yeah, this, we're going to keep pushing this thing. We want this thing. Look, folks, we're talking about nuclear war. To even use the word nuclear, this is where, I kind of, to me, it's like, okay, slow down, take a deep breath. This is where the world needs to stop and say, look, we're talking about the use of nuclear weapons. And I want to tell people that you're going to hear words like phrases like tactical nuclear weapon. And let me just tell you, there is no such thing. When somebody says tactical nuclear weapon, and it's written about, there's doctrine about use of tactical nukes. We talk about tactical nukes on the battlefield because they have, the devastating effects from a tactical nuke. But these are nuclear weapons that still have like 50 times more power than what the United States dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end the war in the Pacific against the imperialist Japanese. So, these are very, very powerful weapons. We have just had both sides exchange a weapon system, ATACMS, and then what the Russians responded with, that are both nuclear capable. The ultimate, I'm going to say this again, the ultimate warning signal to the West by Vladimir Putin was when he fired those missiles, and they went after certain targets, and that will change in a heartbeat. If we start to see now, because one of the scenarios that I talk about is a false flag. And it got me thinking about the false flag thing was really this cutting of this cable between, I think it was Sweden and Finland up in the Black Sea, or up in the Baltic Sea. And there's all kinds of things that are happening sort of in the shadows globally when you're talking about great powers and the competition between great powers and how we operate on the world stage to be able to, to have this competitive atmosphere, particularly military forces arrayed against military forces. Well, right now, is there a heightened alert in our country? Are our nuclear capabilities, our triad, our ballistic missiles, our aircraft, our submarine fleet, are they at a heightened status? I haven't heard anything. We haven't seen anything. We have not had any emergency alerts or anything like that. I mean, so there are things that are not well oiled. Okay, we have a machinery in our country right now because we've spent 20, 25 years in these low intensity conflict type wars, these irregular wars, these wars against terrorists, and we have an entirely conventional capability. And I can tell you, I know this system, and I know the exercise system that we have on a daily basis that's run out of the Pentagon. They're very capable people that do that, but you have to have the next levels of leadership be involved and be responsive. So let's take it back to the potential idea for getting rid of Joe Biden, because I think I just feel in my gut, total speculation, but it's a scenario that it's a possibility that they are going to get rid of Joe Biden. And I just feel that before, probably in the next couple of weeks here. So that brings in Kamala. Everybody goes, well, we don't want Kamala. We don't want the 25th Amendment. We don't want to impeach Biden. Well, you know what? You put Kamala Harris in the hot seat, and Congress. This is where Congress, and thank God we have the House. But I don't think that the House is doing enough. And this gets to Trump's conversations with his team going forward, and the idea that I still believe that there are going to be attempts on Trump's life. Speculation to a degree. We've already seen a couple. These people want ultimate power, and ultimate power only exists when you have total control of the United States government and the United States of America.
And they've more than signaled, General.
Oh, big time. Big time.
With the escalation of the missiles. And then Putin, as you know, when Biden first talked about it 2 months ago, he said, if you move those missiles up, they can be nuclear tipped. We don't know if you're firing nukes at us. Right. If we see that, we may go ahead and nuke Europe. And then now back to the ICBM test or the intermediate range ballistic missile. What did Putin come out and say? He said, this is a test. We evaded your anti-missile systems. We can hit you with MERV technology with nukes. So that was another warning. And he said more warnings are coming. Yeah. What do you you predicted?
Well, here's what I wrote. Here's what I wrote this morning. And I'll read this quick sentence. The deep state will have fulfilled their fatal objectives, okay, which is really to keep us in war and to create World War III, the conditions of World War III, which we are in. So the deep state will have fulfilled all of their fatal objectives, a devastating but controlled, this is really important, but a controlled military commitment, okay? And without the risk of annihilation, especially of our own national territory. This is what these people, they will think like this. So they're, again, like an Austin kind of making his comment, the question you had for me before. There's a very conventional mindset because we've had
normalcy bias.
We've had none of these kinds of conversations for decades, right? And we've had relationships. We've worked with the Russians from back in the 90s of what's called the Partners for Peace
program. So there's true naivete institutionally.
It's incredible. What has happened, the bigger strategic picture, and this is where I think, from Trump's perspective, and everybody knows this, but from Trump's perspective, this administration, and frankly, Obama did the same thing. They have pushed Russia towards China. And that is not something that we want. What we want is to figure out this sort of greater European mass, okay? And this is the United States of America as we figure out sort of the developed world, if you will, even though that world is changing quite a bit because of what I call sort of this Chinese rising, right? China rising, as we've talked about many, many times. When China has access to or ownership of or partial ownership of about 80% of the ports around the world, okay? So the largest ports in the world, China either has direct access, ownership, or partial ownership of some of the
largest. And they've got most of the rare earth minerals.
And the rare earth elements that are out there, the direct access or ownership of some of the major lines of communication, Suez Canal and the Panama Canal.
And Xi issued red lines a week ago for the first time, not just saying Taiwan they'll go to war, but they said if you get in the way of our development, which means their hegemonic economic takeover.
Right, and the alliances that China has formed in South America, right, using Venezuela, using Bolivia, using Brazil. I mean, the alliances that they have formed in Africa, the alliances that they have formed in Europe, the alliances that they have formed with the BRICS nations. So China is like sitting back. And you know what you don't hear, folks? You don't hear China, China, China. You hear Russia, Russia, Russia. Because for the better part of really since the end of World War II, and we started it on the Cold War, and everybody goes, well, the Cold War ended, and everybody remembers a very famous phrase that Obama used against Romney. That enemy's sort of gone. That is billions. Actually, it's probably tens of trillions of dollars that the United States government has invested or spent and continues to spend over time, over probably the better part of 50 years.
And military complexes always tend to try to fight the last war.
Exactly. And so that sort of structure that has been created and now continues to exist, and money keeps flowing, right? I mean, NATO at the end of the Cold War was like 16 nations. Right now, it's like I think we're up to like 26. That's one of the criteria that Russia has always talked about.
So it is a runaway train.
It's so out of control, and I want Trump to stay protected. So this is to you, Donald Trump, down in Mar-a-Lago. You're in a great spot right down there. Keep yourself very secure. Be very careful that nobody knows what X you're going to go on. If you're going to go travel someplace.
I've noticed he's not traveling a lot. That's
And I firmly believe that he has got, because they're not giving him all of the resources that he should have when he, in fact, if he decides to travel, nor the resources that he would have if he was the president of the United States. He should have access to and the authority to apply any resource that the federal government, that the United States government has, because he is the duly elected by
that was my next question.
President of the United States.
We know early on he and Musk called Zelensky and others. Now I've been told by sources, and you talk to him all the time, that he's doing shadow diplomacy there. But you're saying he's the president-elect. He has the power for the briefings, all of it. Now he's been uncharacteristically silent in the last week, and I'm not going to second guess him, but maybe you can tell us what you think or know is going on. And separately, we had Rutte, the head of NATO, going there a few days ago. Can you tell us what's happening behind the scenes? Or?
Yeah, well, what I'll say is that NATO is all for what is happening in Ukraine right now. I mean, NATO wants to, the NATO leadership has been talking about, the Secretary General has been talking about the use of nuclear weapons. I mean, the talk of nuclear weapons is absolutely, should be off the table. And we should have people talking to each other.
It's beyond reckless.
It's hugely reckless. I mean, these are weapon systems that, again, when the cat gets out of the bag there, I mean, you can't put that back in there. And so what we don't want to do is we don't want to go to a place, and I want to remind people, historically, and history matters, World War I, which at the time was called the Great War, was started because it was actually a regional conflict, and it turned into a world war. Okay? So the regional conflict, because people just tripped over each other, and they didn't have the good communications that we have today, although they still had communication.
And it escalated.
It escalated like that. And once it started, I mean, the devastation, the Great
what do you
Britain
make
lost
of the
an
policy,
entire generation of men.
General, what do you make of this is going on for 2.5 years? They admit Biden doesn't ever talk to Putin. No one's talking to them. But Milley, on January 6th, calls the head Chinese general and says, don't worry, I'm really the president. I got the nuke codes. When Trump wasn't even thinking about China then. Right. So they can talk to the Chinese and say, don't worry, we're in charge. Trump isn't. But then they don't talk to the Russians.
Yeah. And I think that this is where people need to understand, the audience needs to understand, America needs to understand, the world needs to understand that the Chinese, the CCP, have so infiltrated the United States of America. They've infiltrated our government. They've infiltrated our non-governmental institutions, education system. They have bought up real estate all over the place. We've seen lots of reports about that. They've bought up companies. They come in as a Chinese entity, but then they really smart about how they use our system, and they create these organizations and government and non-governmental organizations that come in to own stuff. And so, and it's not just that, it's the infiltration. It's the infiltration of our ideas. It's the infiltration of the decision-making. And it's how they have been so steadily climbing sort of in the ranks, so to speak, to achieve where they're at right now. Does China have problems? They certainly do. And Trump fully understands it. That's why what Trump did in his first administration was go right at China. And what he's going to have to do, he's going to have to go right at China. And we need to draw these other giant powers. India is another one. We have to be very careful with the nation of India, with the country of India, to where we don't want India to kind of stay in a place where they're neutral. We want India to
it's really going into Russia's orbit.
Yeah, they really are. When you talk about the BRICS, right? The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, plus another, 25, 30 nations that have partnered with them. So,
let me ask you this. What do we do right now, General Flynn, I think if you're a radio listener, General Michael Flynn, former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, is here with us graciously today. Whole another hour, your calls, your comments, your questions coming up. What do we do as just average citizens other than pray and say we don't want World War III and we support President? We call Speaker Johnson's office, say you better stop. We call Lindsey Graham's office. what do we do to say, hey, who are the officials in the New York Times saying, hey, we're getting ready to give nukes to Ukraine? Just beyond insane. What do we need to do? And then what does Congress need to do? And again, where is Trump? I'm not putting him down. I know behind the scenes he's doing some diplomacy, but he needs to come out and speak out about this.
Yeah, we always say there's one government at a time during these periods of transition, and people watch what happened to me, right? To calm a situation down that could have gotten vastly worse back in 2016. So people can go. They can go examine that if they want to examine that. My very famous phone call with the Russian ambassador to calm the situation down so he didn't start World War III while Obama, which is what he wanted to do, he wanted to get Russia's ire up. So we have one government at a time. I understand that. But that doesn't mean that President Donald J. Trump can't pick up the phone and start calling around to people and saying, look, folks, this is what my agenda is going to be. And it's not going to be nuclear war. It's not going to be in support of World War III. So stop it. And he needs to talk to Biden. He needs to talk to Kamala. He needs to, get the counterparts that he has chosen, even though the tough thing is many of them are not confirmed. He's got National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who's came out with, a calming statement. I think it was yesterday or the day before. Mike's had different ideas about the wars
but at least Europe. He's de-escalating.
He's de-escalating. So Trump, because he's in that position, he is the duly elected J.D. Vance as the duly elected vice president of the United States. There has to be communications right now. So
General, this is important. We got to go to break. Stay there. Yeah. I want you to have the floor on this when we come back. Then we'll start taking some questions from X, also probably some calls, specifically quick questions for General Flynn. Please remember, GeneralFlynn.com. He needs your support. He came here on his own dime. He travels the whole country. Great books, T-shirts, ball caps. I went out and ate Mexican food yesterday with my wife and youngest daughter, wearing my General Flynn hat. Got a compliment. We love General Flynn. I was eating at Chewy's restaurant. The point is, support him. He needs support just like I do. We are your emissaries for Americana and freedom and justice and security and American values and stopping World War III. GeneralFlynn.com. Be sure and support him there. Get his film. It is amazing, incredible. It's all there at GeneralFlynn.com. And then please keep me on air. Yeah, Elon Musk has filed a lawsuit in my support against the Democrats today. He's fully in our case. That's great. The cavalry's coming. But we sell supplements and T-shirts and books and things. That's how we fund ourselves. I'm not a regular show. I got the deep state coming after me, trying to put me in prison, just like they try to do to him. So we're your champions. Not saying I'm the best, but the enemy sees me as that. I can't do this without you. So I'm fighting for you. Please fight for us. Keep sharing the articles, the videos, the live feeds. You're the Paul Revere's, but also go to thealexjonesstore.com and get the amazing supplements like the Superfood Ultimate CMOS, the great Trump apparel, and more at thealexjonesstore.com. Hour number 3 with General Michael Flynn. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA.
A few weeks ago, when I saw Elon Musk in Pennsylvania with Trump at Butler, and he had that dark MAGA hat on, I said, we've got to have our own. And we've come out with it. Yeah, we can put one out that just says Make America Great Again, and that's available at thealexjonesstore.com. But I personally like this one. Murdered Out. It fits great, and it funds the InfoWar and supports President Trump. And if you don't like Murdered Out, we got it white on black. So get yours right now, and a bunch of other great designs of hoodies and T-shirts and top-of-the-line supplements that all fund the Second American Revolution at thealexjonesstore.com. Let me show you a few more of these. Now that the FDA admits fluoride does lower your IQ and give you cancer and infertility, it's a great time to wear one of these beautiful hats, and it's a great way to start a conversation and warn people. Here's the classic Make America Great Again Murdered Out, and we've got the Save the Frogs, over 50 designs, all at thealexjonesstore.com, and it keeps us on air and it spreads the word. Please go to alexjonesstore.com and get your Patriot gear.